A year after the Marshall Fire, one family has rebuilt. But the fire has changed Colorado law in several important ways. Environmental regulators are looking at whether Suncor's pollution of the metro area is a civil rights violation. Have you noticed the egg shortage? It comes as Colorado transitions to cage-free eggs and also fights an avian flu outbreak. You have questions, and we have just the man to get answers.
By the way, love eggs, so you got the right guy.
Your good news this Friday comes from a familiar voice saying goodbye.
The good news to some people might be, this is it for me. I'm dropping the mic.
Farewell to Ginger and 2022 next. A year ago tonight, at this moment, we knew that Colorado was in the grip of something that we had never seen. Mega fire burning through one suburban neighborhood after another. We had no way of knowing at that point that more than 1,000 homes would be lost. And no way to know that today, a year later, one of those families would have rebuilt. In many ways, recovery has been as slow as the Marshall Fire was fast. That is the one rebuilt home so far. There have been so many insurance delays and building permit problems. Families privately wrestling with whether to start again in Boulder County or try to begin again somewhere else. About 1 in 4 families have permits to rebuild, like the Levinsons, who live in Coal Creek Crossing. They're hoping to move into their new home by May.
It is hard to believe that it's been a year since then. I think it's kind of the first of the healing process. It's been, there's been many, things that we've had to overcome to get to this point.
The Levinsons and all of the survivors are still waiting to officially learn what caused the fire. Boulder County Sheriff Joe Pelly told us earlier this month the fire likely had multiple ignition points that came together on that dry, windy day. Pelly says details from his office's investigation might be available in a couple of weeks. Coloradans gave millions of dollars to meet their neighbors' needs, and then the federal and state governments have spent at least $182 million in taxpayer money on recovery. Most of that went to debris cleanup and then rebuilding grants and loans. The Marshall Fire also led to changes in our laws. Over the last year, the state created a new Office of Climate Preparedness to focus on long-term fire mitigation efforts and to respond to natural disasters. There are new regulations in place for controlled burns on private property, including updated requirements to notify authorities before a burn. State legislators have also earmarked millions of dollars for wildfire mitigation and created a tax deduction for homeowners who do mitigation. The Marshall Fire revealed to us how many homes are underinsured, and it's changed how insurance companies and homeowners are looking at protecting properties in the future. The Colorado Division of Insurance ran a survey in the spring and found only 8% of the loss claims had guaranteed replacement coverage, meaning covers all the rebuilding costs, no limit. So 92% of the homeowners' claims had cost limitations on the rebuilding. When you figure in inflation and lumber prices, plus the sheer number of people out there looking for contractors to rebuild, most of the homeowners had less than they needed to rebuild. Coloradans who are living in areas at risk of fire, even those far from where the Marshall Fire burned, they too are feeling insurance impacts.
There is a concern that climate change is leading to more of these fires, and it's really changing the risk profile, the risk outlook here in the state, which obviously the insurance companies are going to react to. We're hearing right now anecdotally issues of availability concerns, people unable to go with, their first, second, third choice of insurance companies, or the coverage that they can find is more expensive, or they're not getting renewed by their current, and so they're having to go out and shop.
So that's what insurance regulators are hearing. The Division of Insurance is looking to go beyond anecdotes and really study just how many Coloradans are having trouble buying or paying for home insurance due to wildfire risk. In the meantime, they're asking insurance companies to voluntarily expand coverage for Marshall Fire survivors by paying for an additional 2 years of living expenses. An ex-viewer named Kendra told us she thought that state law already required all insurance policies to cover 2 years of additional living expenses, like during a rebuild, no 1 year cutoff. So Kendra, state law only requires insurance providers cover that 1 year of additional living expenses for homeowners, it's actually even less for renters. Here's where some of the confusion might come in. Insurers are required to offer 2 years of coverage, but homeowners can decline that for a less expensive 1-year coverage option. The news this week that Suncor oil refinery will close for a few months for repairs is letting people who live nearby literally breathe easier. Families in North Denver and Commerce City have been saying for years that Colorado's air pollution rules do not do enough to protect them. The EPA is now looking at this as a potential civil rights issue in Denver. Here's Anusha Roy.
For her entire life, Lucy Molina has lived in the shadow of Suncor.
Since I was a child, really.
The health issues are still plaguing her even during this interview.
So it's been a 1 week that I've been trying to fight this migraine. It's normal that we have cancer. It's normal that we get asthma.
It's why fighting for better air quality has become all-consuming.
Well, yeah, this has become my life.
So when the EPA announced it will be doing a civil rights compliance review, especially focused on the state's permitting and air emission regulations,
Brown, Black, and indigenous communities, as well as low-income communities, which is this community.
Molina had this to say.
There's so many promises that have not been fulfilled. Holding polluters and corporations accountable for not only current but also past violations.
We're always interested in finding ways to improve in this work.
Trisha Oath with the State Health Department said the EPA told them about this review in spring, and she welcomes it. The feds talked with families in North Denver and surrounding areas to figure out what they should focus on. That list includes taking a look at if the state is reaching enough people in enough different languages and reaching people living with disabilities.
Title VI of the Civil Rights Act is about ensuring that anybody who's using federal funds doesn't have any of their programs intentionally or even unintentionally, implemented in a way that could have a disparate impact on communities of color.
Molina said one of the things not working for her are contradictions.
On one side, we are fighting environmental justice.
And then on the other hand, she watches new fracking wells approved.
Anybody that's going to operate here in Colorado, that it's the most protective it can be.
When it comes to what's looming over Molina's neighborhood, the state said they've changed how they issue permits for Suncor to be much more conscious of the community impact. So we didn't hear back from Suncor today, but the EPA letter that's been circulating this week is interesting because on the one hand, it's actually applauding Colorado, saying it's a leader, recognizing that the state passed the Environmental Justice Act, but then also said it does these periodic compliance reviews, and that's a critical role in addressing historical and systemic barriers. They're hoping at the end of all of this, the State Health Department will serve as a national example. So it's very much a collaboration that's happening right now.
So a nod to the progress that's been made, the changes that have already been implemented.
Yeah, but everybody says, a lot more can be done. So one of the things the state is doing is monitoring more for oil and gas leaks, way more in communities that are impacted by pollution and disproportionately impacted. They're also making sure they're sharing this information in plain language and in multiple languages because they realize what a barrier that was. And like you were talking about, Kyle, that Suncor is temporarily shut down right now because of that equipment damage. The state did say that they are looking very closely at what happens to the air quality without those emissions and taking that data and then studying it.
Yeah, we're about to find out what it means for Colorado to not have an oil refinery in terms of clean air and gas prices.
Exactly.
Yep, Anusha, thank you. Southwest Airlines is trying to airline today, like actually fill planes with people and fly them around. It's a refreshing change in strategy from the last week. Southwest has canceled fewer than 50 flights today. That's about 2,300 fewer cancellations than yesterday. So they're transitioning into delays. Hey, got to walk before you run. They're going to do delays instead. So there are more than 700 delays nationwide today, and a ton of them are in Denver, more than 200 here. And thousands of passengers, of course, are still looking for their bags. The head of Denver International Airport, Phil Washington, says the airport's priority is no longer really moving people that were stranded, but getting people reunited with luggage.
I do see some improvement in terms of the bags being reduced, just the volume of the bags being reduced. So I think people are being connected with their bags. We've seen people on the terminal floor in tears. We've seen some of them very happy to find their bags. And so our priority is to make sure that we can do whatever we can to facilitate that.
The Federal Department of Transportation is on Southwest like a cheap suit, saying they should be liable for any costs for lost luggage and that the feds are willing to impose fines against Southwest if that's what's required. A judge now says the civil rights law firm that represented Elijah McClain's parents in their lawsuit against the city of Aurora, that law firm is entitled to a sizable chunk of the multi-million-dollar settlement. The city of Aurora agreed to pay $15 million to Shaneen McClain and Luane Mosley to settle their wrongful death lawsuit for the death of their son. Elijah McClain had done nothing wrong when he was stopped and restrained by Aurora police and later died. This week, a Denver District Court judge ruled that about $3 million of the $15 million should go to law firm Kilmer Lane Newman. McClain's mother, Shaneen McClain, filed the suit earlier this year after firing her attorney. She said she shouldn't have to pay the contingency fee because she got bad legal advice. Shaneen McClain also argued that the attorney had a conflict of interest because they represented both her and Elijah's father, and the two of them had a disagreement about the terms of the settlement. The judge, who ultimately sided with the attorney, said there was a conflict, but said that the firm still did, quote, extraordinary work and deserved to be paid. Over the holiday weekend, Denver is likely to see its 3,000th migrant to come to or through the city since the start of December, a city that is unaccustomed to even a fraction of the volume of migrants seen in border cities. Denver's been struggling to find shelter and basic necessities for so many people. A number of churches and nonprofits are stepping up to help, and next viewers are too. Since Wednesday, your latest Word of Thanks microgiving campaign has raised more than $50,000 for the Newcomers Fund. The nonprofit Rose Community Foundation has put together this single fund that will quickly distribute money to the various nonprofits and government agencies providing housing, clothing, meals, medical care. Longer-term needs will include help with rent deposits, community navigation as people settle into their new lives, and after the 150-day waiting period required by law for asylum seekers, they'll need help finding jobs. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get that link to join me in donating. You know, with the exception of a couple of angry voices, Coloradans have really welcomed the migrants and asylum seekers with open arms, and the hope is that these families will be safe and self-sufficient as soon as possible. Thank you for your help with that. Brunch will get more expensive as Colorado becomes a better place to be a chicken. A new law is not the only thing that's driving up egg prices. And a bittersweet goodbye for a legend in local radio. But it's Friday, so she's going to focus on her good news next. Eggs are suddenly more expensive. Did you notice? I mean, yeah, everything's more expensive, but especially eggs. A new state law requires that egg-laying hens get more space starting next year. Egg producers will be required to give each hen at least 1 square foot of space in their enclosures starting Sunday. By 2025, all egg-laying hens in Colorado will have to be in cage-free environments. That change, combined with an awful year for avian flu impacting hen houses across the state, is making eggs more expensive.
With these different confinements, of course, there's a cost to that. And raising hens in these other facilities, other environments, it's more costly to raise the hens and produce the eggs. So that will equate to an increase in price. What that's going to be, we can't say.
The Colorado Egg Producers Group said that as many as 90% of the state's flock of hens were killed because of the avian flu outbreak. They expect it'll take until May to get things back to normal. Colorado Egg Producers told our Steve Steger, big egg aficionado, happy to do the interview for us, that consumer demand for cage-free eggs was already up in our state. It's one reason why they worked with the State Department of Ag on this cage-free bill. Egg producers who get caught breaking the new law could be fined up to $1,000 per violation.
And time for a quick check of your forecast for this Friday evening. We have plenty of snow on the way, too. Winter storm warnings paint much of western Colorado and even into the high country. We also have a winter weather advisory that lasts up until noon on Monday for Rocky Mountain National Park and for the Medicine Bow Range, around 6 to 12 inches with gusts up to 55 miles per hour. The winter storm warning, 10 to 20 inches for areas that you see in that ruby color. Isolated amounts up to 30 inches of snowfall. So let me take you through this right now. Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening, that snow is staying mighty strong out towards the west and even mixing with a little bit of rainfall and freezing rain up towards the north and west, just the north of the I-70 corridor in those lower elevations. Denver is going to be getting some snow too starting Monday morning and even into Monday afternoon. A little bit of rainfall by Monday between the 10 and 11 o'clock hour in the morning. Snow forecast when it's all said and done, we're looking at anywhere between 12 to 18 inches for Telluride, Denver around 5 inches, along the the Front Range, we're talking temperatures and, we're talking snow anywhere between 6 to 12 inches for Eldora. Same thing goes for Winter Park. 7-day forecast, a little cooler on Monday and Tuesday. That cool air is making sure the snow is going to be staying put. Same thing goes for Wednesday, rebounding into the upper 30s and lower 40s on Thursday and Friday.
A familiar voice is signing off after decades in local radio. All smiles as she starts What's Next.
It's the end of an era, end of a chapter, but it's just been such a great ride.
40 years on air, 40 years of good news for her. Next. We have been sharing good news with you for the last 331 Fridays. Gingerly Havlet's been making listeners smile for about 2,000 Fridays. Ginger's dropping the mic after close to 4 decades on air at KBCO, and she graciously made time to share her good news with us.
Good morning, I'm Ginger. As I look back on my long, how many G's in long career, tomorrow my last day. Today is the second to last day that I'll be on the air on 97.3 KBCO in an official capacity. It's been an incredible ride. One of the best parts, obviously, interviewing artists in KBCO Studio C. So I've been handpicking some of my faves. Here's the gang with Stevie. My good news is that I've been so fortunate and I'm so thankful to have had a dream job for nearly 40 years. I want to start out with Stevie. She's got a Colorado connection.
I didn't realize my great-great-grandmother was in one of the last Indian wars coming across the Colorado mountains, and she was the only survivor. She was 4.
Oh my goodness.
So I love Colorado.
I'm trying to check the emotions, because if I dwell on it, and landslide's going to kill me here in a little bit, because I've been afraid of changes, because I built my life around you. Good news is that I'm walking out the door with a big smile on my face and very thankful for all the years and the amazing listeners that I've had a chance to share and connect with. Oh, so many memories. I know I'm going to wake up Sunday and go, what the hell did I just do? I would like to personally thank you for nearly 40 amazing years in my career. Thank you.
Ginger will host her final midday show tomorrow. She interviewed countless legends over the years, like Fleetwood Mac's Stevie Nicks, we heard there in the story. But we asked her, favorite interview? Paul McCartney in 1993. All right, which next viewer should get the final word on 2022? Got to stack your feedback. I'll try to pick a good one next. The most Colorado thing we saw today reminds me of the very first days of this program, when those of us here on the team and you had a mild obsession with doggles. It cracked us up. And then along the way, we learned that the word doggles is trademarked. It belongs to a company like Kleenex or Dumpster. So we started calling them dog goggles, and it's just not as much fun when you do that. But anyway, Matt Spidell spotted a dog wearing them on a hike in Glenwood Springs, and we couldn't resist the throwback. Final feedback of 2022. Jonathan writes in about the Marshall Fire and the coverage from last year. A year ago, you were on the scene delivering the first-hand story of the fire. We'll never forget you covered this humanely a year ago and in the months since. Humanely is an interesting choice of words, Jonathan. I appreciate that, and I hope that folks in the community appreciated the coverage. It's what they deserved. Mac is taking us out on a feisty note. I like Mac's feedback because it's always succinct. He writes, Kyle's a loser. That can't be the final word on 2022. What else we got? Here we go. Keith, in light of all the negative feedback you get, I like you. You make me laugh. You make me laugh too, and think. So I'll see you next year.